9. Beloved Amen. Actors who tragically passed away. What if we told you that behind the laughter of Amen, one of the most beloved black sitcoms of the 80s, were stories filled with heartbreak, betrayal, addiction, and untimely death? These weren't just actors playing roles, they were real people fighting personal demons behind the scenes. From mysterious deaths to hidden illnesses and battles with fame, the truth is far darker than anyone expected. In this video, we uncover the tragic fates of 9 unforgettable stars. Watch closely, because their stories will change the way you remember this iconic show. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence. Sherman Hemsley. Sherman Hemsley, born on February 1, 1938 in South Philadelphia, became a household name through his electric performances on television. By the time he joined Amen in 1986 as Deacon Ernest Fry, he was already known across America for his legendary portrayal of George Jefferson on The Jeffersons. But while audiences laughed at his on-screen antics, Hemsley's off-screen existence was far from lighthearted. At the age of 48, Hemsley stepped into the role of Deacon Fry, a boisterous, scheming church deacon who often clashed with clergy and congregants alike. His comedic brilliance masked a far more private and controlled reality. Never married and with no publicly known romantic relationships, his personal life sparked speculation. He lived his later years in a modest home in El Paso, Texas, alongside a male companion, Kenny Johnston, who would later be involved in a bitter legal dispute over Hemsley's body after his death. Colleagues often described Hemsley as distant and difficult during production. He reportedly demanded script changes, resisted softening of his character, and occasionally erupted in frustration on set. Despite his on-screen charm, he kept fellow cast members at a formal distance, rarely forming lasting friendships within the industry. On July 24, 2012, Sherman Hemsley passed away at the age of 74 from superior vena cava syndrome, a rare condition caused by a tumor compressing the vein that returns blood from the upper body to the heart. Following his death, controversy erupted over who had the legal right to claim his remains, Johnston, or a man claiming to be his estranged half-brother. Though known for roles that radiated humor, Hemsley's life reflected solitude, mystery, and guarded emotion. His contribution to Amen remains vital, but the pain behind his laughter reveals a legacy both brilliant and bittersweet. Elsa Raven. Elsa Raven, born on September 21, 1929 in Charleston, South Carolina, joined Amen in 1988 at the age of 59 as Inga, the church's quirky and lovable housekeeper. Known for her thick accent and peculiar habits, her character added both charm and unexpected wisdom to the show. But while audiences viewed her as harmlessly eccentric, Raven's real life was a complicated tapestry woven with emotional trauma and fierce independence. Raised by a controlling stage mother who pushed her into the entertainment industry, Raven harbored deep psychological scars. Her childhood, marred by manipulation and instability, left her guarded and unusually protective of her space. She was known on set for hoarding scripts and demanding wardrobe changes, often clashing with costume designers and producers over creative direction. Despite her erratic behavior, Raven was deeply committed to her Jewish faith and was unafraid to confront what she saw as religious insensitivity in scripts. She famously walked off set during a shoot over a line she deemed offensive, a rare act of defiance in an industry where actors often felt silenced. She never married and had no children, living most of her later years in quiet isolation. While some peers remembered her for her humor and warmth, others recalled a woman perpetually at war with her past and mistrustful of those around her. Elsa Raven passed away on November 2, 2020, at the age of 91 from natural causes. Although she had dozens of credits to her name, including memorable appearances in Back to the Future and Titanic, her role on Amen marked one of her last recurring TV roles. Her legacy remains one of quiet brilliance, haunted resilience, and a fierce, if sometimes lonely, commitment to her craft and convictions. Jester Hairston. Born on July 9, 1901 in Bellows Creek, North Carolina, joined Amen in his mid-80s, portraying Raleigh Forbes, a gentle church elder whose quiet wisdom stood as a spiritual counterbalance to the chaos around him. A classically trained musician, composer, and actor, Hairston brought gravitas to the show, drawn from a lifetime of professional accomplishment and private disappointment. What many viewers didn't know was that Hairston was the very composer behind the show's theme song, Amen, which lent the series its name and signature musical identity. A tireless scholar of African-American spirituals, he spent decades preserving the cultural legacy of Black gospel music. Yet Hollywood routinely cast him in subservient or exoticized roles, African villagers, butlers, and background extras, despite his elite education and artistic pedigree. While he never made public outcries about the racism he faced, those close to him acknowledged that he carried years of quiet resentment. Passed over for roles he helped craft and minimized in industry accolades, he felt his talent was often used but never fully honored. In his later years, Hairston lived alone, distanced from some relatives, and immersed in music until his passing. He died on January 18, 2000, at the remarkable age of 98 from natural causes. Though never involved in scandal, his legacy was tinged with bittersweet truths, a towering figure in Black cultural history whose industry often failed to match his dignity. Hairston's presence on Amen symbolized more than just another cast member. It was a living bridge to a forgotten history of Black artistic struggle and silent perseverance. Rosetta Lenoir. Rosetta Lenoir, born on August 8, 1911 in New York City, brought formidable warmth and unwavering presence to the role of Leola Henderson Forbes on Amen beginning in 1987 at age 75. On screen, she exuded dignity, compassion, and strength, a church matriarch full of love and guidance. Off-screen, however, her life was far more tumultuous, marked by health battles, strained family ties, and intense ambition. As a child, Lenoir was diagnosed with rickets, a condition that forced her to wear leg braces for much of her youth. But she defied the odds to become a major figure in American theater, especially as a champion of inclusive casting. In 1968, she founded the AMAS Repertory Theater, one of the first multicultural performing arts organizations in the United States. She received the National Medal of Arts in 1999 for her efforts in promoting diversity. Yet behind her accolades lay a series of personal struggles. Her marriage ended in quiet heartbreak, and though she had a son, their relationship was reported to be distant, complicated by his battle with addiction. Within the theater world, she was both revered and feared, known for her unrelenting drive, and a reputation for playing favorites with protégés. Several young performers who once idolized her later accused her of gatekeeping and manipulation. Lenoir passed away on March 17, 2002, at the age of 90, due to complications from diabetes. Though widely respected, her final years were marked by loneliness and fading public recognition. Her legacy remains that of a barrier-breaking pioneer whose personal pain never diminished her impact on American culture and Black performance history. Franklin Seals. Franklin Seals, born July 15, 1952 in St. Vincent, and the Grenadines lit up the screen as Lorenzo Hollingsworth on Amen when he joined the cast at just 34 years old in 1986. Dapper, witty, and irresistibly charismatic, Lorenzo became a fan favorite. But the actor behind the charm endured a much darker reality, one shaped by cultural displacement, sexual stigma, and terminal illness. Seals was a Juilliard-trained actor, one of few Black Caribbean talents to graduate from the prestigious institution in the 1970s. His career had early promise with a critically acclaimed role on Silver Spoons, but Hollywood's typecasting machinery quickly boxed him into shallow or flamboyant supporting roles. Seals, who was openly gay among friends but never publicly faced both racial and sexual discrimination in an unforgiving industry. In the late 1980s, Seals was diagnosed with AIDS. He kept the illness private, concealing it even from many colleagues. Consumed by a sense of shame instilled by his strict Pentecostal upbringing, he refused treatment and withdrew from the public eye. As job offers dried up, he struggled financially and emotionally, his health declining rapidly. Franklin Seals died on May 14, 1990, at the young age of 37 from AIDS-related complications. His passing went largely unnoticed by the mainstream press, a heartbreaking reflection of how Hollywood often treats those who do not fit its narrow mold. Though his time on Amen was brief, Seals left a lasting impression both as a performer of rare charm and as a tragic figure silenced by a world not ready to accept all of who he was. LaWanda Page. LaWanda Page, born October 19, 1920 in Cleveland, Ohio, brought fiery intensity and unfiltered wit to her role as Darla on Amen in 1991, appearing late in the show's run at the age of 71. Her character, much like Page herself, didn't conform to social niceties, bold, brash, and full of unrelenting energy. Known to millions as Aunt Esther from Sanford and Son, Page was more than just a comedic icon. She was a trailblazer with a controversial past and an unshakable will. Before mainstream fame, Page built her name in the underground black comedy circuit, delivering raw, raunchy, and often politically incorrect routines that targeted religion, sex, and power with sharp-tongued precision. Her early days were filled with hardship. She performed as a fire eater in traveling sideshows and endured dangerous gigs in segregated clubs. These experiences left her both battle-hardened and defiant characteristics that followed her into every role she played. Off-set, she was known for being difficult to manage. She frequently demanded rewrites and reportedly brought a flask and marijuana to filming. Her rebellious streak alienated network executives, but endeared her to fans who saw her as a symbol of resistance and authenticity. Her relationships were turbulent, with several failed marriages and years-long estrangements from siblings and friends. On September 14, 2002, LaWanda Page died from complications related to diabetes at age 81. Though her comedic legacy is celebrated, her life was defined by struggle survival and a refusal to be silenced. Her brief role on Amen was one of her last on-screen appearances, a final stamp of defiance on a career that rewrote the rules of comedy. James Avery. James Avery, born November 27, 1945 in Suffolk, Virginia, joined Amen in 1986 at age 41, playing Reverend Tom Crawford, a steady moral compass who anchored the show's spiritual themes. Known later for his iconic role as Uncle Phil on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Avery's rich baritone and commanding presence made him a fixture in American television. Yet behind that imposing exterior lay decades of personal and professional struggle. A classically trained actor and Navy veteran, Avery entered Hollywood at a time when roles for black men with gravitas were limited. He fought to avoid being typecast, often turning down stereotypical roles which slowed his ascent. Before Fresh Prince, he endured long years of underemployment and frustration, making his eventual success hard-earned. Privately, Avery battled with weight-related health problems, and his marriage, though long-standing, suffered from extended separations and recurring rumors of infidelity. On set, his perfectionist tendencies often caused friction with producers and less experienced co-stars. He was known to demand script rewrites and exert strict control over his character's dialogue to maintain dignity and consistency. Despite these challenges, Avery remained dedicated to mentoring younger actors and advocating for richer, more complex portrayals of black men. His sudden death on December 31, 2013, at age 68, following complications from open-heart surgery, shocked fans and colleagues alike. Avery left behind no children, but an enduring cultural legacy defined by authority, compassion, and relentless professionalism. On Amen, he gave Reverend Crawford the blend of patience and gravitas that grounded the show's moral center. But beyond the screen, Avery was a man often at odds with a world that underestimated his depth. His life and death remind us that even towering figures carry invisible burdens. Ron Glass. Ron Glass, born July 10, 1945 in Evansville, Indiana, brought a refined elegance to his brief role as Jason Lockwood on Amen in 1989 at age 44. Though his appearance on the show was limited, it reflected the poised, articulate persona he carried throughout his career. Best known for his role as Detective Ron Harris on Barney Miller, and later as Shepard Book on Firefly Glass, exuded intelligence, grace, and quiet magnetism. But behind the composed surface was a man burdened by deep loneliness and unspoken pain. A devout Buddhist, Glass maintained an intensely private lifestyle rarely seen in public outside of professional obligations. Despite decades in Hollywood, he never married and did not publicly acknowledge his sexuality. Rumors of discreet relationships, including possible romances with much younger protégés, surfaced quietly within the industry, but Glass neither confirmed nor denied them. His career, while respected, was constrained by typecasting. After the success of Barney Miller offers for complex roles dwindled, triggering periods of depression and professional disillusionment. Former co-stars described him as distant and emotionally guarded even during collaborative projects. These traits many believed were rooted in his struggle to reconcile personal identity with a conservative and often homophobic industry. Ron Glass died from respiratory failure on November 25, 2016 at age 71. He left behind no spouse or children and little documentation of his private life. His funeral was a quiet affair, befitting a man who kept so much of himself hidden. While his on-screen charisma remains unforgettable, his real-life story is one of muted sorrow of a gifted actor celebrated by audiences yet often misunderstood and emotionally adrift. Richard Ferrangis. Richard Ferrangis, born August 3, 1937 in Brooklyn, New York, brought raw intensity to Amen as C.J. Wiggins in 1987 at age 50. With his rugged charm and tough demeanor, Ferrangis was perfectly cast as a street-smart hustler, largely because he had once lived that life. Before acting, he served time in both Sing Sing and Attica for armed robbery, and worked as a mob enforcer. His transition from real-life crime to screen villainy made him both fascinating and controversial in Hollywood circles. Ferrangis claimed he turned his life around after prison diving into acting classes and leveraging his gritty past to land roles in films like Midnight Run and Carlito's Way. However, his off-screen behavior suggested that his past wasn't entirely behind him. Directors and crew members described him as volatile with sudden mood swings and a commanding presence that intimidated some co-stars. There were quiet allegations of backstage manipulation and confrontational conduct that led some to avoid working with him altogether. His self-published memoir raised eyebrows for its sensational claims and glorified storytelling, with several reviewers questioning the truthfulness of his accounts. Rumors persisted that he maintained ties to underworld figures even during his acting career, blurring the line between fiction and fact. Despite these red flags, Ferrangis built a niche career in crime dramas portraying gangsters and crooked cops with unmatched authenticity. He passed away on May 19, 2024, at the age of 86 from natural causes. Though he lived far from the spotlight in his final years, his name continues to surface in discussions of actors with real-life criminal pasts. Ferrangis' life story is a cautionary tale of transformation, but also one steeped in contradiction, risk, and unanswered questions. John Hancock. John Hancock, born March 4, 1941 in Hazen, Arkansas, brought gravitas and dignity to the role of Marshall Whitaker in Amen, starting in 1986 at age 45. With his booming baritone voice and commanding presence, Hancock embodied leadership and reverence, often portraying authority figures with ease. Yet behind that air of confidence was a man haunted by internal struggles few ever saw. Trained in classical theater and blessed with a voice tailor-made for drama, Hancock was frequently cast in roles that emphasized strength and stoicism. However, the industry often reduced him to rigid archetypes, limiting his artistic growth and stifling his creative voice. Friends and industry colleagues reported that Hancock felt boxed in, frustrated that he was rarely offered roles that reflected the complexity he knew he could deliver. Off-camera, his life was marked by emotional isolation. Despite a few long-term romantic relationships, none led to marriage or children. Hancock reportedly struggled with chronic depression and bouts of severe self-doubt issues he concealed from nearly everyone. Behind closed doors, he also battled alcoholism, a secret he fiercely guarded even from those closest to him. On October 12, 1992, Hancock died suddenly of a heart attack at the age of 51. The news shocked his peers, many of whom were unaware of his personal demons. His passing ended a career that held immense promise, but was curtailed by both typecasting and the emotional burdens he bore in silence. Hancock remains a symbol of quiet excellence, an actor who gave powerful performances even as his own inner world unraveled. Raymond St. Jacques. Raymond St. Jacques, born March 1, 1930 in Hartford, Connecticut, made history as the first black actor to star regularly in a television Western rawhide. In Amen, he appeared as Jason Adderley in 1986 at age 56, an intelligent, composed figure who reflected St. Jacques' own poised persona. Yet his legacy extends far beyond his television appearances. He was a relentless advocate for racial equity in Hollywood, and his unwavering activism often came at a cost. Educated at Yale and the Actors Studio, St. Jacques was more than just a performer, he was a director, writer, and intellectual. But his refusal to play submissive or stereotypical roles made him a controversial figure. Producers and executives often labeled him difficult, a euphemism for his outspokenness against systemic bias in the entertainment industry. Privately, his life was filled with tension. Though he was seen as a mentor to younger actors, many described him as intensely private, guarded, and at times, confrontational. Reports of a volatile temper and heavy drinking surfaced throughout his later years, with rumors of outbursts on set. His personal relationships were equally strained, with no known long-term partnerships or children. Behind his refined public image was a man wrestling with loneliness and disillusionment. St. Jacques passed away on August 27, 1990, at the age of 60. Mysteriously, no official cause of death was released, fueling speculation about his final days. His passing marked the end of a career that was as intellectually profound as it was emotionally stormy. St. Jacques remains an icon of resistance and refinement, a performer who challenged the industry not just with his talent, but with his unwavering principles. Whitman Mayo. Whitman Mayo, born November 15, 1930 in New York City, became a household name for his beloved role as Grady Wilson on Sanford and Son. In Amen, he appeared in 1991 at age 61 as Swifty, a street-savvy elder with a heart of gold and a mischievous glint. Known for his raspy voice, slow gait, and impeccable comedic timing, Mayo made his mark as a character actor who could steal scenes with just a glance or a pause. But his real life bore far less levity than his characters ever revealed. A veteran of the Korean War, Mayo carried the psychological scars of combat, including symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, long before mental health support for veterans was widely recognized. Friends recalled episodes of withdrawal and uncharacteristic anger that would flare up in private. Although he kept a scandal-free public profile, those close to him knew he battled bouts of emotional instability and internalized trauma. His personal life was equally complex. Mayo experienced financial hardship throughout his career, often accepting smaller roles just to stay afloat. Estranged from some of his children, he kept his family life largely out of the spotlight, with reports suggesting deep rifts caused by personal choices and past wounds. Despite these difficulties, he remained deeply committed to mentoring young actors and often taught theater classes at colleges and community programs. On May 22, 2001, Mayo died of a heart attack in Atlanta at the age of 70. His death marked the quiet end of a life spent making others laugh while privately carrying burdens that few ever recognized. Though often cast as comic relief, Mayo's true story was one of silent struggle, resilience, and a lifelong effort to balance public joy with private pain. William Wyndham. William Wyndham, born September 28, 1923 in New York City, was a prolific actor whose career spanned over 5 decades, encompassing everything from stage work to major television roles. On Amen, he played the eccentric Nick St. Nicholas in 1990 at the age of 67, a quirky intellectual who brought a cerebral charm to the church ensemble. Behind his refined character, however, was a man who fought personal demons with remarkable intensity. Known widely for his role on Murder, She Wrote and his Emmy-winning performance in My World and Welcome to It, Wyndham had over 135 television and film credits. Yet his personal life was riddled with repeated emotional turmoil. He was married 5 times and estranged from several of his children, reportedly due to his perfectionist nature, mood swings, and intense work ethic. Former partners described him as both deeply charismatic and frustratingly unpredictable. Wyndham also battled with alcoholism and severe anxiety conditions that often went unnoticed due to his polished exterior and ability to perform under pressure. Friends described him as an insomniac, consumed with self-doubt, despite public acclaim. While he appeared jovial and articulate in interviews, those close to him noted a profound sense of inner loneliness that lingered even at the height of his fame. On August 16, 2012, Wyndham died from congestive heart failure at age 88. Though he enjoyed a long and respected career, the final chapters of his life were tinged with regret, fractured relationships, and the haunting cost of artistic obsession. His contribution to Amen was brief, but memorable, another layer in a career defined by intellect, eccentricity, and a restless spirit that never quite found peace. Richard Roundtree. Richard Roundtree, born on July 9, 1942 in New Rochelle, New York, made a guest appearance on Amen in 1989 at the age of 47, portraying Sergeant Burke, a calm, authoritative figure representing justice and order. Though his role was short-lived, his presence carried enormous weight. Roundtree had already cemented his place in cinematic history as the first black action hero in Shaft, 1971, a role that shattered racial boundaries and redefined black masculinity in film. However, behind the strong screen persona lay a man grappling with personal turbulence. Throughout his career, Roundtree experienced both admiration and isolation. After Shaft, he was often typecast, his fame overshadowing his broader acting range. He fought to redefine himself beyond the tough guy archetype, but opportunities remained limited. Privately, he endured 2 divorces, both marked by emotional distance and allegations of infidelity. His family life, though outwardly dignified, was filled with tension. He fathered 5 children, and reports suggest he remained estranged from some of them, particularly during disputes over finances and inheritance. Health challenges also shadowed his life. In 1993, he was diagnosed with breast cancer, a rare condition in men, and underwent a double mastectomy. Though he survived, the experience added to a growing sense of vulnerability that contrasted sharply with his public image. On October 24, 2023, Roundtree passed away at age 81, following a battle with pancreatic cancer. While his legacy as a barrier-breaking icon remains unquestioned, the private pain he carried through strained relationships, career frustrations, and personal health battles reveals a more human and haunting side of the legendary actor. Earl Boen. Earl Boen, born August 8, 1941 in Pueblo, Colorado, joined Amen in 1988 at age 47, portraying Dr. Carter, a no-nonsense character whose stern demeanor mirrored Bowen's usual screen roles. Though best recognized as Dr. Silberman in the Terminator film series, Boen was a prolific character actor and voice artist whose career spanned theater, television, animation, and video games. His distinctive voice made him a go-to talent in the voiceover industry. Yet behind his commanding tone and sharp delivery, Bowen's private life was fraught with silent battles. A self-described perfectionist, Boen was known in the industry for being extremely meticulous, which earned him both respect and a reputation for being hard to please. Directors occasionally clashed with him over creative differences, and younger colleagues sometimes found his exacting standards intimidating. Though he maintained a professional public image, insiders noted that Bowen struggled with anxiety and obsessive tendencies that could strain relationships and isolate him from his peers. He also faced a lifelong addiction to cigarettes, which contributed to the lung cancer that would ultimately claim his life. While he retired from on-camera acting in 2003, he continued his prolific voice work until 2017, lending his voice to countless animated projects and video games. His dedication to his craft, even while battling declining health, reflected a relentless drive to stay relevant and productive. Earl Bowen passed away on January 5, 2023 at the age of 81 after a quiet battle with lung cancer. He left behind a robust body of work, but little is known about his personal relationships or family life. His story is one of disciplined talent and unspoken struggle, a man whose voice echoed across generations, even as he quietly carried burdens few ever heard. John Witherspoon. John Witherspoon, born on January 27, 1942 in Detroit, Michigan, joined Amen in 1988 at age 46, playing the witty and sarcastic bailiff. Known for his eccentric energy, bulging eyes, and iconic delivery, Witherspoon became a comedic staple in films like Friday and series such as The Wayans Brothers. While fans remember him for his infectious humor and offbeat characters, his real-life story held much deeper shadows. Raised in a large working-class family, Witherspoon had a difficult childhood shaped by economic instability and strained family dynamics. He found solace in performance, starting in stand-up comedy before transitioning to television and film. His public image was that of a clean, scandal-free funny man, but those close to him revealed a more layered portrait, a man plagued by chronic health problems, including undiagnosed heart issues and diabetes. Colleagues noted moments of irritability and emotional distance, particularly during stressful productions. He often worked through illness and exhaustion driven by financial pressure and a perfectionist mindset. While his marriage remained intact, insiders noted the emotional toll fame and overwork took on his relationships. Witherspoon was known to push himself beyond his physical limits, masking anxiety and bouts of depression with non-stop work and deflective humor. On October 29, 2019, he died suddenly from a heart attack caused by coronary artery disease at the age of 77. His death shocked the comedy world, as he had shown few signs of slowing down. Behind the laughs was a man driven by a deep need to succeed and haunted by a turbulent past few ever knew. Fran Bennett. Fran Bennett, born on August 14, 1937 in Malvern, Arkansas, appeared on Amen in 1987 at the age of 50, portraying Judge Walters, a commanding figure known for her cool authority and sharp intellect. A classically trained actress and theater veteran, Bennett brought a level of gravitas to every role she touched. Her booming voice and poised demeanor were matched by a lifetime devoted to the stage and to mentoring future generations. Yet behind her composed surface lay a story of solitude and silent endurance. Bennett's career was rooted in academia and theater. She was a longtime faculty member at CalArts, where she influenced a generation of actors. While her professional accolades were many, her personal life remained carefully guarded. She never married, and reports of estrangement from family members added a layer of sadness to her otherwise impressive life. Close acquaintances described her as deeply introspective and fiercely protective of her emotional space. Though not one for scandal, Bennett endured whispered speculation about long periods of depression and internal conflict over sacrificing personal fulfillment for artistic dedication. In her later years, she reportedly faced financial strain accepting smaller roles and voice work to manage living expenses. Despite these hardships, she continued teaching and performing until the very end. Fran Bennett passed away quietly in Los Angeles on September 12, 2021 at the age of 84. Her cause of death was never publicly disclosed, leaving fans and colleagues in somber reflection. Though her public legacy is one of strength and brilliance, the woman behind the curtain, lived a life defined by discipline, dignity, and the cost of choosing art over everything else. Ray Combs. Ray Combs, born April 3, 1956 in Hamilton, Ohio, was best known as the energetic and quick-witted host of Family Feud in the late 1980s and early 90s. In 1988, he appeared in Amen at age 32, playing Harold Buckner, a lively comedic addition that suited his high-energy persona. But behind the crowd-pleasing smile was a man trapped in a spiral of physical pain, emotional breakdowns, and financial ruin. A former stand-up comedian, Combs skyrocketed to fame after replacing Richard Dawson as Family Feud's host. However, a series of personal setbacks soon overshadowed his success. A failed spinal surgery in the early 90s left him with chronic back pain. As his career declined, so did his emotional state. Financial troubles escalated, culminating in bankruptcy. At the same time, his marriage fell apart amid allegations of infidelity and verbal abuse, leading to separation from his wife and 6 children. By the mid-1990s, Combs' public persona had all but vanished. He struggled with addiction to prescription painkillers and alcohol, and industry insiders noted erratic behavior and unreliability. On June 2, 1996, at only 40 years old, Combs died by suicide while in a psychiatric facility. The tragedy shocked fans and underscored the brutal hidden cost of stardom. His fall from grace remains one of television's most heartbreaking cautionary tales. Eric Christmas. Eric Christmas, born March 19, 1916 in London. England, was a respected character actor with a flair for eccentricity and sharp comedic delivery. On Amen, he appeared in 1989 at age 73 as Reverend Didymore, a quirky but lovable clergyman. Behind the role was a man whose professional longevity belied the deep sorrow and personal losses that marked his final years. Christmas had a distinguished career in stage and screen, appearing in everything from Shakespeare to cult classics like Porky's. Known for his dignified British accent and expressive face, he often played intellectuals, clergymen, and oddballs with endearing charm. Yet his later life was consumed by profound grief, first from the death of his wife, and later the devastating loss of his only child. Friends noted that he never fully recovered from these events, retreating into isolation. Although he was known for mentoring younger actors and maintaining a polished image, insiders reported he had a notoriously short temper during rehearsals and struggled with the industry's changing pace. His old-school methods and stubborn perfectionism sometimes clashed with directors and younger cast members. Chronic health problems, particularly mobility issues and respiratory complications, gradually reduced his energy and visibility in the industry. Eric Christmas passed away on July 22, 2000 at the age of 84 due to natural causes. Though never a major headline name, he earned the respect of his peers through consistency and quiet excellence. His role in Amen was small but memorable, capping off a long career with a gentle character who, like the man himself, masked sorrow with grace and professionalism. Richard Rote. Richard Rote, born July 3, 1933 in Hartford, Connecticut, was a familiar face across decades of American television. On Amen, he portrayed Michael Stevens in 1988 at age 55, a polished, competent character that echoed Rote's own reputation as a reliable and refined actor. With over 135 screen credits to his name, he was the quintessential supporting player, never flashy, but always essential. Yet despite his vast resume, Rote's personal journey was filled with quiet battles and emotional isolation. Known for recurring roles on Seinfeld, Friends, Dallas, and Murder, Rote was respected within the industry, but rarely recognized by the public. Friends described him as intelligent and sharp-witted, but also intensely private. He was plagued by chronic anxiety, which he concealed behind a carefully maintained professional exterior. This emotional toll, combined with the pressures of an unpredictable industry, left him feeling invisible despite decades of steady work. His personal life carried its own weight. Though married, his relationship endured long periods of separation, reportedly fueled by his secret gambling addiction. Financial stress became an undercurrent in his later years, pushing him to accept minor roles well past retirement age. While never embroiled in scandal, Roat was said to have clashed with producers over creative decisions, yearning for deeper artistic control that often eluded him. Richard Roat died of a heart attack on August 5, 2022, at the age of 89. He left no children and passed with little fanfare, an end that mirrored the quiet, often overlooked nature of his life. His legacy remains one of subtle excellence, a man who gave everything to his craft even as his contributions were too often taken for granted. Nell Carter. Nell Carter, born September 13, 1948 in Birmingham, Alabama, captivated audiences with her powerful voice and larger-than-life presence. She played Bess Richards on Amen in 1986 at the age of 38, infusing the role with sass soul and undeniable charisma. Already a Tony Award-winning performer for Ain't Misbehavin' and the star of Gimme a Break, Carter was known for lighting up every stage she walked on. But behind the brilliance lay years of pain, addiction, and heartbreak. Carter's early life was steeped in trauma. She was sexually assaulted at age 16 and later gave birth to a son she raised as her brother. Her professional ascent masked ongoing battles with substance abuse, first with cocaine and later with prescription drugs and alcohol. Despite several stints in rehab, her addictions repeatedly derailed her career. Financial woes mounted due to poor money management and lavish spending, leaving her teetering on the brink of homelessness more than once. Her romantic life was equally troubled. She endured volatile relationships and a high-profile custody battle over her adopted daughter. Health issues plagued her for decades, including diabetes and complications from multiple surgeries. She also suffered 3 miscarriages and underwent brain surgery for aneurysms, medical traumas that further destabilized her emotional health. Nell Carter died on January 23, 2003 at the age of 54 from heart disease compounded by diabetes. She collapsed in her Beverly Hills home, and though the world lost a brilliant performer, the deeper tragedy was how much she had endured to keep performing at all. Her legacy is one of resilience and raw talent, an artist who gave her all until her body could give no more. Paula Kelly. Paula Kelly, born October 21, 1942 in Jacksonville, Florida, was a multi-talented performer who brought elegance and poise to every stage and screen she graced. In Amen, she appeared in 1986 at the age of 44, playing Leona, a character as sharp, confident, and polished as Kelly herself. A Juilliard-trained dancer, singer, and actress, Kelly's career spanned Broadway, television, and film, earning her critical acclaim. But behind the regal demeanor was a woman struggling to maintain balance between public admiration and personal adversity. Kelly made headlines early in her career with a bold move posing for Playboy in 1969, a decision that sparked backlash from conservative circles and affected her career trajectory. Though immensely talented, she was often overlooked for lead roles, pushed instead into supporting parts despite rave reviews for performances in projects like Sweet Charity and Night Court. She was nominated for an Emmy in 1984, yet mainstream fame remained elusive. On set, Kelly was reportedly intense, deeply committed to her craft, and unafraid to voice her opinions. This led to frequent clashes with directors and co-stars, which combined with her outspokenness, may have cost her several high-profile roles. Her romantic relationships were equally turbulent, ending in a series of painful divorces with whispers of emotional volatility haunting her reputation in later years. In her final years, she battled chronic heart problems and deep loneliness, further complicated by estrangement from parts of her extended family. She died on February 8, 2020, at age 77 from heart failure. Her life, while cloaked in beauty and sophistication, was also a portrait of emotional resilience. Paula Kelly remains a symbol of uncompromising artistry, a woman who dared to defy convention and paid the price with both triumph and heartache. Jason Bernard. Jason Bernard, born May 17, 1938, in Chicago, Illinois, was a versatile actor who appeared on Amen in 1987 at age 49 as Dexter Rollins, a character imbued with the actor's natural charm and authoritative energy. With roles across film, television, and voice work, Bernard built a steady, if underappreciated, career. His deep voice, steady gaze, and composed demeanor gave him an edge in courtroom dramas, political thrillers, and urban comedies alike. But his quiet storm of personal hardship and unresolved emotional strain remained largely hidden from view. Bernard began in radio and theater before breaking into screen roles during the 1970s and 1980s. Despite memorable appearances in films like While You Were Sleeping and Blue Thunder, he was rarely given top billing. Industry insiders noted that Bernard was often frustrated by this feeling that his range and experience were overlooked because he didn't fit the Hollywood mold of a star. Privately, his life was a complex web of strained relationships. His first marriage ended in turmoil with reports of emotional instability and infidelity. Though he found success as a voice actor and teacher, many colleagues described his personality as unpredictable. He could be warm and generous one moment, then withdrawn and explosive the next. Bernard also struggled with hypertension and stress-related health issues, often working long hours despite his declining condition. He kept most of his medical concerns to himself, unwilling to slow down for fear of losing relevance in an already competitive industry. On October 16, 1996, Bernard died suddenly of a heart attack while driving at the age of 58. His death shocked those who knew him as a quiet warrior, a man who gave everything to his craft while fighting a private war with pressure, disappointment, and fatigue. Jason Bernard's legacy endures as one of quiet brilliance interrupted far too soon. Moses Gunn. Moses Gunn, born October 2, 1929 in St. Louis, Missouri, brought a commanding gravitas to every role he played. In Amen, he appeared in 1989 at the age of 60 as Benjamin Tillman, a wise and authoritative figure whose presence resonated with the kind of depth only a true stage veteran could deliver. Gunn's refined voice, regal bearing, and powerful gaze reflected a man steeped in classical training, but his life off stage was far more conflicted than his dignified performances suggested. A graduate of the University of Kansas and later of the prestigious Negro ensemble company Gunn, was a towering figure in American theater. He received a Tony nomination for The Poison Tree and delivered unforgettable performances in Shakespearean classics like Othello and King Lear. However, despite his acclaim on stage, Gunn frequently found himself typecast in Hollywood, relegated to roles as authority figures, African leaders, or hardened patriarchs. Privately, Gunn wrestled with a volatile temper that alienated many colleagues. While he mentored younger black actors, those close to him described a man whose intensity could quickly shift into rage. His marriage eventually ended in painful estrangement, with reports of emotional volatility and struggles to maintain communication with his children. In the final years of his life, Gunn battled chronic asthma, a condition that not only hampered his health, but also cost him roles as producers grew hesitant about the risk involved. The illness forced him into semi-retirement, deepening his sense of frustration over an industry that had rarely given him the full recognition he deserved. On December 16, 1993, Moses Gunn died from complications of asthma at the age of 64. His passing marked the loss of one of the most gifted actors of his generation, a man whose artistic legacy is undeniable, but whose personal journey was marked by regret, disappointment, and solitude. Moses Gunn remains a symbol of classical brilliance and the emotional cost of being a black actor demanding respect in an unequal world. As we reflect on the lives of these unforgettable Amen stars, one truth becomes clear: behind every laugh track was a personal story filled with struggle, sacrifice, and strength. Their talent shaped a generation, but their pain often remained unseen. Do you believe Hollywood did enough to honor their legacies while they were alive? Or were these legends celebrated only after their light had faded? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you value stories that preserve the truth behind Black excellence, Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and join the journey here on Legends of Black Excellence.